We're getting into it, folks. We got another. Actually, this might be the last one. Is this the last? Checks fake notes. I think this is the last buy-sell show in our incredible guest analyst series over the last couple of weeks. And coming up here in just a matter of moments, NBA Fantasy Bible. The last remaining Dan that we had to get on this show also. These are important things. These are important boxes you got to check. And then we pivot back into the usual stuff, although I have another series of guest analyst shows slated for January that I think you guys are going to really like a lot, or at least I hope you do, because I'm doing them, although I might do like the first two. And if you hate them, sorry, scrap the whole damn board. I'm Dan Besbris. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe to what we're doing over here at Old Man Squad Sports Network. And if you have a moment, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify really does go an awfully long way. And BetOnline, you guys may remember the game starts here. We've got a promo code for you right now, BLEAV. Use that code for a welcome bonus on your first deposit at BetOnline, the locale that continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. You can get live in-game odds, the earliest odds, and the ability to watch the games as they're happening. Football, NBA, college hoops, NHL, UFC. Head there today. BetOnline again. The game starts here. I have nothing else I need to cover. Let's get the last Dan involved. He's not the last Dan. He's a perfectly fantastic Dan, but he happens to be the last one to come on the show in this analyst series. He's the last Dan to come on the show, period. We're cleaning the Dans. We got them all. One of them was a given. In any event, here we go. There he is. They call him dmac, but I can't help but call him Dan because it knocks out the full quartet. NBA Fantasy Bible on social media. Make sure to drop him a follow. dmac, Dan, as I yank my earbud out again. I do this once per show right now because I'm old. Also, happy birthday and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. Yep, my 40th birthday was yesterday. Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to be on. It's a fanboy moment for myself. For those that follow Twitter, obviously you're one of the godfathers, but yeah, absolute pleasure to be on. Thank you so much.
That's a title that I never wanted to have, to be like the king of Twitter. But like, you have to, right? I know, we all know you got to sort of play the game a little bit and make sure that people can see the stuff you're doing. But for me, this is a special moment because you complete the clean sweep on Dan's. Now there's me. I think I can count myself for being on the show. Palio, Titus, dmac. There are a lot of Dans in fantasy basketball. We have fully taken over. And I'm just so happy to get you on. Timing wise, you and I are probably the hardest to schedule because what did we decide our difference is? Like 15 hours. So like my awake and your awake times are very rarely at the same moment. But thank you for squeezing this in literally as the sun is coming up. You're in Western Australia, right?
Western Australia. So it's just about 6 a.m. here. So just woke up, but yeah, it's fresh. Very good.
Yeah, it's very fresh. Congratulations on somehow getting your voice loosened up way before it should have to be. But everybody knows the rule on this show. When a guest comes on, they get to decide where the hell we're going with it. You've got 4 buy low, sell high names. dmac, where you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to take this a different way. And in the same theme of me being a fanboy, a fan coming onto your show, I'm going to pose some names. 3 of the names I think over the years you've been a fan of, but I think this year maybe not so much. So I'm going to actually turn it and ask you the question because I get a lot of questions on Twitter, and it's not as basic as saying yes or no, trade for him or trade him out. But the first guy I want to start with, Lauri Markkanen, Roto extraordinaire, guy that we've loved over the last 3 seasons since he's come across from the Bulls, but such a disappointing season. He's ranked 77th per game in NICAT at the moment, 103rd in totals. And we know with Utah, we're going to get a whole heap of games down the stretch where he's not going to be playing as much as we'd like him to be. We know how good he can be on a per-game basis. He hasn't actually shown that. In every single statistic, he's down on what he was last season. Is he a buy low or is he just a sell? He's definitely not a sell high. Is he just a sell? Do you want to get rid of Lauri Markkanen? Or are we thinking there's going to be room for improvement, and particularly in a Roto situation, is he actually a bit of a gold mine? Are we going to get some value out of him for the rest of the season? So I'm going to flip it and ask you that question, Dan.
All right. I'll graciously accept your flip. And, is there a way for it to kind of be both? I guess we should start with the caveat that this is not really a guy that folks should have been drafting in head-to-head leagues anyway, because we knew what Utah was going to be doing this year. It was one of those things of like, all right, he's going in the third. I don't want him in the third. But if he drops to like the fourth, fifth round, then you start to look at him in head-to-head. In Roto, we figured we could take him in the third as a guy that would kind of cruise along with like relatively early round value. And then if he missed 10, 15 games in March and April, and whatever handful over the rest of the year, it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. But like you said, for him, the big thing right now is just volume. He's just not getting the volume that he had the last couple of seasons. And it's not like someone there is just taking all of his shots away. It's largely the same roster that it was at the end of last year. They're not like healthier or less healthy than they were for most of last season. He's just doing less. And I'll admit, it does give me some pause on a buy low because they've got this back maintenance where he keeps missing games to keep his back fresh. It's hard to know without being able to get a microphone right in his face and say, hey, why are you taking fewer shots? Why are you less involved this year? Is it by design? Is it that you're not feeling 100%? Because the minutes are not that different, down to just a smidge, but like not a colossal deal from 33 to 31 and a half. That's small. That's 5% dip, but shots are down from over 16 to under 13. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think he probably ends up doing more as he kind of gets his legs underneath him. You're probably going to also see the Jazz trade some bodies away over the course of this year, so that'll open up a little bit more stuff. But he's probably not getting where he was being drafted. And so if you took him on the games cap side, I have him on one Roto roster because generally he was going earlier than I wanted. You probably just have to stick with it at that point. Because I don't think you're going to get enough back to make it worth your while either. DMAC, where do you stand on Markkanen? At least certainly for the Roto side. Because I think head to head, we can all agree you probably just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, he's actually been on our buy low show a fair bit with Kayla and myself. And it's one of those ones where it's buyer beware. In a Roto situation, I think, absolute buy low. In a head-to-head, I don't want anything to do with Utah, except for maybe guys like Keontae George and John Collins. Yesteryear. It's the Hawks version, but it was the prime Hawks version of John Collins. So I'm okay trading for someone like him. But Lauri Markkanen, not so much in a head-to-head. So that's why I wanted to flip it. But thank you for those insights. I love that. But yes, for Roto, probably not for head-to-head.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm with him as well. DMAC, where do you want to go next? Who's player number 2? Are you going to flip it on me again?
I will. I will absolutely flip it. And it's going to be in a similar vein. Joel Embiid. Where are we standing on him? Because he is at an all-time low in terms of his per-game value, his total value, obviously. He's played 6 games for the entire season. That's not what you want from a guy that was probably taken in the second round, sometimes even in the first round of drafts this season. Is he a buy low? I don't even know if you want to be touching him in a head-to-head. But again, in a Roto situation, games cap situation, I think he is.
Roto? Hell yes. I will lean in on this one, even with a little bit of elbow grease. There is almost no way that his value could be worse than it is. I don't want to say at this moment because he's coming back pretty soon, we figure, from this sinus fracture. And I think that's probably less scary for fantasy managers than the knee swelling stuff. But I don't know. Every couple of games he gets off for non-knee related things, I almost just look at it as a silver lining. Like, all right, well, that, maybe preserves his knee a little bit more. This is a guy that as he gets his legs underneath him, and I still do believe that he will, he's still a top tier fantasy talent, and you can get him for way less than that. And I'm frankly willing. Now, take a little bit of a grain of salt. Head to head, if your team is like cruising first place, second place, or whatever, don't upset the apple cart. That's not a situation where you want to blow something up for Joel Embiid. But if you're like the 4th place team in your head-to-head league and you're looking up at the top 2 and going, I got no shot if I play those teams in the playoffs, Embiid is the perfect solution to that mess. Because Who cares if your team gets a little bit worse? You were the 4th seed. You probably weren't the best team in your league anyway. If Joel doesn't play that well over the next month, 2 months, whatever, you just need him to be playing in your head-to-head playoffs. People are like, oh, well, that's exactly when he's not going to play. Nobody knows when the hell he's not going to play. Might be now, which it has been. Might be January. Might be March. We don't know because he's banged up and there's a lot of stuff going on. They might need to be playing him down the stretch to secure a slightly better play-in position or something like that. So I think
that's the thing, Dan. I think Philly
yeah.
actually need him. He needs to be on the court for Philly to actually do well. They've been absolutely disappointing this season. Jared McCain's on the sidelines for some time. Embiid's actually questionable for tomorrow, which is great news. That's really, really good that he's coming back so quickly. And hopefully the meniscus issues don't flare up throughout the course of the season. But I think he is a buy low in a Roto situation, and it is one of those high risk, high rewards situations in a head to head. Like you said, if you're a 4th seed or even little bit lower, and you probably can't win the championship, and let's be honest, we're playing for first here. We're not playing for second place.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get ourselves an Embiid for one of your lesser guys on your roster. I think that's a great play.
I think that what folks get caught up on with trading for Embiid is like, I don't want to give away my, number 45 or whatever. And I get that. If you look at the guys that are ranked around 45 to 50, excluding the really big name guys, like let's take Scotty Barnes and LeBron and Jalen Brunson and Trae Young. Take those guys out of the equation because they're sort of different punt build type of dudes. But if we're talking about like, let's see, which of these guys might get the job done for Joel Embiid? Pascal Siakam 2 weeks ago almost definitely would have gotten you Joel Embiid. And I know that hurts to say, oh, I don't want to lose the guy that's giving me 20 points and 6.5 boards and 3.5 assists. But at the end of the day, I had that number right. Your team can survive without Pascal Siakam. That's not going to sink your team if you trade for Embiid and you get very little out of him over the next month, 2 months, eternity, or however it turns out to be. And so, like you, I'm going to say for Roto, yeah, absolutely, because you just want to squeeze out as many top 25 type of games you can get from anyone on your roster. And head-to-head, if you're in that in-between zone and you can give up someone who's good, a positive impact player on your team, but not a real big move-the-needle type, to get a guy that can be a top 5 player in all of fantasy basketball, I think you got to do it. DMAC, before we get to your third player, what are you working on these days? Hit me with some promo. Where can everybody find you? What are the latest projects? I want to know it all.
Yeah, still working with Kayla Fonte. I know you've had Kayla on your show a couple of times, but we do a weekly show between two hoops, so that's going really nice. We are looking to get some more guests on the show. Wink, wink, Dan. Perhaps in the new year, which would be wonderful. I'm really trying to boost that up as well. But yeah, it's coming along nicely. But yeah, shout out to Kayla as well if she's watching.
Again, on Twitter at NBA Fantasy Bible. NBA Fantasy Bible on social media. Make sure to check him out. Who is number 3 on the list? Is this a third flip it?
It is, but it's not a buy low, but it's a sell high for me. And it's Jimmy Butler, one of your favorites over the seasons. Absolute monster game last game against the Detroit Pistons. Beat them up, but Pistons actually got away with a win. Triple-double, 4 steals, 1 block. Huge, huge game. I think it's a sell high moment. He's ranked 39th in 9-cat for the season. But in totals, again, it comes down to totals. Is he going to be disappointing us come end of season when we need him to be playing fantasy playoffs? I think it's going to be something like we've seen over the past few years. And we've seen Tyler Hero really step up. Bam Adebayo is playing a really different role this season. But Jimmy Butler, huge game last one, but I think it is a sell high.
Yeah, he's a weird one. I'm in between on Jimmy Butler. I talked about him on a show earlier this week. Who the hell? I don't remember. So many of these series. I feel bad now. I'll look it up during our next when you're talking next. But we talked about Jimmy Butler on a show earlier this week as the rare player who can be both a buy low and a sell high at the exact same time. That's a hard needle to thread. But somehow, because he has this extraordinary field goal percent right now, but like an exceptionally low for him free throw number, and the steals number is actually a little bit low, you're looking at him like, depending on who I present this player to, they might look at him and go, oh yeah, that field goal percent is not going to hold. he's a sell high. Or they might look at him and say, oh, I think his steals and his free throw number are going to come up. He's a buy low. I actually don't know what the right answer is on him. I think it really comes down to gauging the way the other managers in your league view his value and trying to see what you could get back. So, DMAC, now I'm going to flip it back around on you, the double flip, the rare
Well
podcast
played.
double flip.
Well played, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It comes with many years of podcast double flipping experience. Would you, if you were selling high on Butler, total nonsense, what would you be looking to get back? So that, like, let's try to set the price threshold here, because that might be where you and I can kind of come together on what we do with him.
Well, on the season, he's 39th per game in 9-cat. Again, is it a matter of distinguishing between Roto and head-to-head? I think you do that. I think in a Roto, you're expecting a lot more. I'm expecting someone at least in the third round in terms of value, possibly even the second, because we can, like you said, he can improve his steal rate, his free throws. He hit 10 or 12, but in yesteryear, we were used to him hitting 12 of 12. Still good, but not Jimmy Butler good. So in Roto, I'm expecting a close to a third round guy. In head-to-head, look, if someone gave me a top, I would even take a top 50. I'll be honest. I haven't got Jimmy Butler in many head-to-head leagues just because of the threat of him sitting games when it comes to fantasy playoffs. So I'd be okay with a top 50 guy. You throw some names out. Who's in the top 50?
It's a weird area, by the way, on the board, because you've got all those guys I mentioned a moment ago that are like second round picks that are all weird punt performers right now. They're like frightfully few 50 range guys who you'd actually point at and go, yeah, that guy seems like a 50. Like, I always gravitate back to Pascal Siakam because he's the only really consistent one in there. But I guess like Jakob Poeltl, Bam Adebayo,
I was going to ask you about Bam. His teammates, Bam and Tyler Hero. I'm actually leaning towards Tyler Hero, to be honest, over Jimmy Butler. As crazy as that sounds, Tyler Hero's had an outstanding season.
Yeah, I don't know. I may disagree with you on that one, because I think Hero probably comes back to earth a little bit, and then he's also been a bit banged up, about the same amount as. But although with Hero, it's usually like the 1 or 2 longer absence, and with Butler, it's like, oh, bruised tailbone, that's 3 days. Bruised knee, that's 2 games, and they just you get those 2 every 2 weeks, and it adds up to 20 over the course of the year. With Hero, it's like healthy. Oh no, and then a month and a quarter later, he's back in, and he's hanging in there. I think if you could turn him into Bam Adebayo, that to me is the one where you're like, all right, I think that's probably something I could hang on to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that that Butler's starting to round into shape, because he was a pretty clear buy low when he was ranked down near whatever it was, 75 or 80 a couple weeks ago, and he's been a first rounder. It's hard to say the last week, because that's a game for most of these guys right now. But last like 2 to 5 ball games, he's looked a bit more like himself. But Butler's a fun one. The rare buy and sell player at the same time. DMAC, before I ask you for your fourth one, you brought up something in one of the notes you were talking about with Butler that I thought is worth discussing, which is the totals versus per game battle. And I'm a proponent of the idea that both provide some kind of context about what a player is doing. How do you tend to weight totals and per game in the way that you attack fantasy?
It's a balance, and I know over the years you've been a proponent of the 10th category, availability. It is, again, you distinguish between head-to-head and Roto.
Yeah.
Very, very much more important in head-to-head, obviously. So I am pretty heavy on totals, but again, you can't predict injuries. You never can. But someone like Jimmy Butler, someone like Joel Embiid, someone like Lauri Markkanen, there's a theme here. They're the guys that you probably can predict they're going to be missing games at the end of the season. So I am big on that, and that's why I'm quite big on moving off of some of these guys, but also finding that fine balance between getting someone low like a Lauri Markkanen and a Joel Embiid that can help your cause as well. So yes, I do. I probably weight it quite evenly, the average as well as the totals. It's quite an even weighting for me.
Yeah, everything with fantasy has like a little bit of a fuzzy barrier to it. I think for me, I value totals very heavily for like my first 3 or 4 rounds 3 probably. Once you get to the 4th, then I start to take some more risks, like a Jimmy Butler this year I was willing to take in the 4th round, or a Kawhi Leonard, who obviously that one hasn't worked as well because he still isn't playing, but sounds like he is getting close. As opposed to like, I didn't want to take Lauri Markkanen in the 2nd or 3rd round because of that same thing. You got to get guys early that are good and play. And then as you work your way down the board, you can take larger risks because if your 5th round pick turns to crap, you're kind of still okay. Danny boy, what's number 4?
4th one. This one is clear cut. This one's RJ Barrett. And I know he's just been a late scratch from the game for today. So it may make the sell high a little bit more difficult. But with Scotty Barnes coming back, so bad timing. But point RJ has been so impressive, and he's looked a lot better than he has over the years. But he, for me, is looking outstanding. But again, I've never had RJ, and I still to this day never had RJ on any of my fantasy teams over the 7 or 8 years, ever. But for those that do, in category leagues, absolute sell high moment. We don't know when Quickly's returning. Scotty Barnes, I believe, is returning today, if not very, very soon. So I think point RJ is not going to be a thing moving forward. Absolute sell high. And just because he is going to miss today, I still think that probably gives him a great opportunity. You go, hang on, he's still got these awesome numbers. He's getting triple doubles here, there, and everywhere. Sell high on RJ, even in a points league situation. And Kayla and myself talk about points leagues as much as we do category leagues. He's still going to be a top 50 guy in points leagues.
Yeah, he's a points league behemoth. Let me actually ask you a question about the points league side, because most of the questions that come in on YouTube shows about RJ Barrett are, what do we do with him in points leagues? And I'll admit, I currently play in exactly 0 points leagues. I find them disturbing. So that sell high, I mean, it's still a sell high because he's just not going to be doing as much as guys come back. But what are the lines like for him in terms of return there? Because they're like, oh, who should I fight for? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, go get someone who has a similar number of points to what he's averaging right now on the season. Because like half his games have been with someone else who handles the basketball, and half of his games have been without him. So like, if you can get somebody that has what he's doing now before he slides back to that back barrier, but that's a pretty, I don't know, vague way to answer the question. Do you have more color we can add on the points league side?
He's a clear top 50 guy in points leagues. So again, like you said, if you can sell high, knowing that IQ is going to come back, knowing that Scotty Barnes is going to take away his point guard role as well, you do that in an instant. Otherwise, you ride it out, because RJ Barrett's very valuable in a points league. Again, we've never had him in any leagues, so not so much in a category league. He kills you in efficiency, and I love my efficient guys, and he's not one of those guys.
Yeah, I know that he's in a better situation in Toronto than he was in New York. There's sort of no question that that's the case. He's been sort of free to be RJ in a way that Tom Thibodeau was never going to let him do that. And this has been the perfect start for him, with Quickly missing the entire year, Scotty Barnes missing like 70% of the season so far. Jakob Poeltl's now out too. And like you said, he's missing this game, and folks that are watching on YouTube, you can see it on the screen. He's listed out due to illness. This is not a serious thing that's caused him to be a late scratch for the ball game here on Thursday night, depending on when you're watching the show. And you're right. It might actually be a blessing that no one's going to see a line he puts up potentially with another star level player or a star level player next to him, or trying to play through cold symptoms or whatever's going on. But it does feel like, dmac, there's a pretty serious like Jack Bauer 24 type of clock ticking down on whatever you can get for RJ.
Yeah, there's a fine line. There's a very, very fine window right now, but you're right. This gives us an opportunity to negotiate with another manager, and I don't know how you play it with trading, but if you're able to openly communicate with the other manager, going, just look at those lines, and yeah, he just missed one game, it's fine. Maybe they don't realize that that's the game that Scotty Barnes came back. So yeah, it's a very, very finite window right now, but if you can sell high, you do so.
Yeah, you almost have to. And I personally, I'm in too many leagues to orchestrate a bunch of trades. But the nice thing about being in a ton of leagues is that they just keep showing up in my inbox. I don't actually have to do anything. And like someone gave me Tyrese Halliburton for Jakob Poeltl earlier in the year. That's the kind of buy low that I was like, try throwing out Jakob Poeltl. And everybody was like, what kind of dumb league is this? I'm like, well, I'll have
It
you
happens.
know. Yeah, I was driving down Federal here in West Los Angeles, and my phone dinged, and I was like, "Oh!" And I pulled over to the side of the road to accept Tyrese Halliburton. So it happens. These things always pop up. Everybody always immediately, like their gut reaction when they watch a buy low, sell high show is to go, "That'll never work." And I promise you, well, I'm gonna go Justin Bieber here. Never say never. These things do happen, and they happen more often than you'd think. Might not happen in your league, but I mean, what do we need it to happen in? 1 out of every 10 leagues, 2 out of every 10, whatever. That's a big number of teams that can cash in on the type of stuff that we talk about on these buy and sell shows. DMAC, you're officially off the hot seat. You brought 4. That was all I wanted. What a pleasure, man. I'm so glad that you were able to wake up early as hell and right after your 40th birthday. Before I let you go, tell me, how do your limbs feel right now? Still fine, or did the 40 hit like a freight train?
It hit like a freight train, and I'll be honest with you, I may be a little bit hungover. So hopefully I have been okay on your show, my inaugural appearance on your show. But 40 feels good, baby. 40 is the new 20. And every time I do this, I compare myself to LeBron. He is our age. He is 40 years old, and I'm pretty sure his birthday is in December as well.
Yeah, I think it's in the next couple of days. Well, you and LeBron are very close in age. I'm sadly 41 and a half right now. My children love to remind me that you count ages in additional months and portions of the year. Again, just be 41. I got to be 41 and however many damn months on top of that. Well, welcome to the aged club. We got to get a whole bunch of fresh blood in this fantasy community. We need the young bucks to come in and remind us, help us put away our canes and play with Spry again. I don't know. By the way, DMAC, I have no idea how you're hungover because I can't even consume alcohol to the point where I would feel hungover the next day. I fall asleep immediately after like 1.5 drinks from now. So, sir, you are not truly old yet until you try to drink and fail because you're way too tired to even do it. So,
yeah. Just wait until my children wake up and start harassing me, and then I'm going to start really feeling it.
Yeah, you got to pregame your day by getting the Tylenol and Advil in before they all wake up. Well, thank you for waking up early after having some festivities the evening before. I pray for you for the rest of your day. Welcome to 40. NBA Fantasy Bible on social media. Check them out immediately. DMAC, thank you so much, my man.
Thank you, Dan. Absolute pleasure. See you guys.
The illustrious DMAC. I don't know if he wants me to give out his actual name, but I am telling you that his name is Dan because that's important for my tracking purposes. And obviously, selfishly, what I want is the only important thing that matters in this universe. But this now completes basically the sweep. Everybody, there was like at the beginning of fantasy draft season, I put out a tweet that was like, I got to get every analyst on this show. Who do you guys want me to have on? And I'm pretty sure that every single basketball analyst that you guys responded with, I've had on the show, except for one analyst that's had me blocked for like 7 years. And I still don't entirely know why. So that one's, you just throw them off to the side. Otherwise, yeah, everybody that I've communicated with over the last 7 years of doing this, we got them all on. DMAC, you should be both flattered and very upset that you were the last one. NBA Fantasy Bible is where you can find him on social media. That is spelled exactly the way you think it would be. NBA Fantasy Bible, because if you were going to read the Fantasy Bible, better be about the damn NBA. Here's what's coming up on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. This show should be airing. I'm going to try to get this thing posted immediately after we record it, early on Thursday afternoon, Pacific time. Tomorrow, Friday, we're not going to do the weekend review show in the morning because it's been such a weird week with basically no games. There was Monday, and then there was a crap ton on Thursday. But like, doth that enough games make? We'll include the Friday games. We'll try to just stretch it into one more day. We'll have that Saturday morning show be the weekend review. That went really well, actually, last week. A lot of you guys watched it. The feedback was, this is fantastic. We love to have a show to watch first thing on Saturday morning. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that every week, but that's something that I'm going to try to do when we can. So tomorrow, Friday, it'll be just a big Thursday recap show. So there's 13 games. There's going to be a lot to talk about. We're also going to run hot and cold. We've tried to do one of those shows every week. Those do take a little bit more time, but I think there's enough time to get that bad boy done. Sunday, we'll have a weekly preview show for Christmas week, and then we roll right into next week as well. I don't have a set schedule for next week. Most likely, we will have 2 shows on Monday, 1 show on Tuesday. We may or may not have a show on Christmas Day. Yes, I know I'm your friendly neighborhood Hebrew, so it's not like I'm celebrating that day, although that is the first night of Hanukkah. But yeah, that wouldn't interfere with the podcast. In all likelihood, it's just a day where no one's really sitting around listening to podcasts, so it might be a day for me to rest my pipes. But again, after Christmas, you settle in, and at that point, then it's kind of like the long haul for a while. I don't think there's any like reasonable break. January 26th, there's 1 game on a Sunday. But otherwise, there's really like things are pretty consistently normal until the All-Star break in mid-February. So let's just get through this, and then everything can settle in. We can enjoy routine. I am a child of routine, as we say about my own children. Children need routine. Dan Besbris needs routine. I don't know if dmac needs routine, but the routine today was him waking up real early, hungover, and doing a podcast with me. So again, very grateful. Hit that liking button. Oh dear. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Old Man Squad Sports Network on YouTube and Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball feed everywhere you are taking in the content. Hit that 5-star review. Hit that like button. And follow along over on Twitter at Dan Besbris, at Old Man Squad on Blue Sky. I'm putting stuff out over there every hour or two, covering kind of the gaps in between what we can discuss on the podcasts. I'll see you there, everybody. It's been a pleasure.